second question we had, does cardio on an empty stomach burn more fat? AKA, there's always this question of like, should we be fasted and do we need to do fasted cardio? Is it more beneficial? Or can we eat food and be fed when we go to do our cardio?
Yeah, so I think for zone 2, you kind of have the freedom of doing either one. I personally like it fasted, and this may be a more male perspective, and I think that you may have a different opinion as it comes to females. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. So because the purpose of zone 2 is mostly to stay within the fat burning zone, we shouldn't need to have carbohydrates in our body to effectively zone 2. The alternative to is zone 5, in which case you're 100% not using fat in zone 5. And so I would absolutely not go into a zone 5 session without having some sort of fuel in you, similarly to going into a weightlifting session.
Alex, what would be your answer? Like if a client asked you like, hey, if I'm doing cardio, should I be doing it fasted or fed? Like, how would you explain that to clients? Or like, what would be your response?
I mean, I think it really just depends on the person. I think I agree with Bryan. Like for zone 2, you probably don't need to have fuel if that's something that just doesn't sit well with you. Like I know for me personally, I don't need to necessarily have food before I go and do some kind of longer steady state cardio. But if I'm doing something like jujitsu,
blowing my mind. I would literally die. I would skydive off a cliff.
If I'm doing jujitsu, I normally would eat, but I have definitely trained jujitsu even without eating. So I think it really just depends on how you respond to it and how you do with it. I'm not sure exactly. I don't think from the evidence base like there's any difference between fasted or fed.
So the one thing that I did actually mean to say is that it appears that if you do cardio fasted, that you burn more fat during the session, but that there's a compensation post-session where your metabolism slows down as a result of that, whereas your metabolism stays higher if you have food going into that session.
So to recap, Bryan, because like I said, it's like I was under the assumption it's like just do whatever makes you happy. Like if you enjoy if you enjoy or prefer being fasted, be fasted. But then reversely, if you do enjoy having food in your stomach, by all means do it too. Either way, I would still peg that as like a 1% thing of like there's so many bigger rocks out there to like give a fuck about with your nutrition fitness. Especially with especially with females. It's like just keep in mind that again, it's like because we have menstrual cycles and things are just a little more complex. Our body is just much more sensitive when we start to look at changes in terms of doing, just in general, like not even in relation to, specifically like doing cardio, but it's like even when we look at comparing males versus comparing menstruating women to, fasting protocols or this or that, it's just like you start to see a lot of variance. And so I would just, especially, if you are female, if you are menstruating, I would just, really play around with this and figure out where you feel best. What you'll likely see is that, especially as we get older, we start having changes to estrogen levels once we kind of hit that 40, 50 and beyond versus, when we're kind of earlier in our 20s and 30s, it's like you're likely going to feel a little bit better doing some of the fasting stuff or not being as fed if you're a little bit older versus again, it's like if you're trying to maintain your menstrual cycle and your menstrual health, it's like for me personally, like I said, it's like that is a no-brainer. And I quickly learned like absolutely fucking not. Like if I'm going to the gym, I don't like training fasted. I like being fed. But it also like part of that too is just like a digestive preference. It's like for years, I trained for a marathon. So it's like, well, yeah, I'm going out for 3 hours. So heck yeah, I need to go slam food or I'm going to die halfway through the run, right? So it's like equal parts. What can your digestion handle? But then truly, how do you feel, if you have food in your stomach, do you feel sluggish? Do you feel just, you're not performing your best, whether that's cardio, whether that's lifting or reversely, do you feel, even for me, it's like, I would just want something, like I said, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carb in my stomach for sure.
Yeah. Individual preference and self-monitoring, I think is the takeaway from that.